we will focus on some of the different types of exceptions which can be raised when issuing HTTP requests using the HTTPX library, and also a few options with regards to how those can be handled. I have created a new Jupyter notebook called exceptions for this, and once we import HTTPX into our code, it is time for us to issue a GET request and process the response if there is one, but we place this within a try except block in order to handle a request error in case one is thrown. An HTTPX.request error is one of the more common kinds of errors which can be encountered when working with HTTPX. These correspond to errors which are encountered before a request gets sent out and have to do with malformed URLs, not specifying the correct amount of parameters, and so on when using the HTTPX library. So in this case, let's see what happens if you were to issue a GET request to www.skillsoft.com and there is no exception which is raised. This is because our request was valid and we also have a response. To confirm that, we can check the status code in the response object, and this does return a value of 200. Alright then, so we've covered the case where no exception is raised, but what if we issue a GET request to a malformed URL? So this is just to www.skillsoft, and this is something which HTTPX will be able to detect as an incorrect URL and raises an exception before the request is sent over to the remote server. So this is where a request error is raised, and there are a number of different types of request errors defined in HTTPX. In this case specifically, a connect error is raised. Let's move along then from request errors to the HTTP status error. This is a kind of exception which is raised based on the status code in the response object. So if the status code is either in the 400s or 500s, well, an HTTP status error is raised. We will now explore this when we issue a GET request to skillsoft.com/non-existent path, which we have used previously in this learning path and represents a non-existent endpoint. When we send over such a GET request, that itself will not raise an exception. In fact, it is the response object which contains the details for the status code, and based on that, we can decide to raise an exception. And how exactly can we do that? Well, we revisit the function raise for status, which is available in a response object. This will look at the status code and